welcome everybody to today's CESI Talks. CESI Talks are a series of interviews we're having with leading politicians, leading MEPs, stakeholders from the Brussels bubble, representatives of the European Commission, also in view, so to have, how could I say, a positive but also critical view at the European Union, also, of course, in view of the upcoming elections 2024. And today I have Marc Angel, the MEP and Vice President, recently elected. Congratulations. And Marc Angel is also member of course, of the Parliament's Bureau, but of the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs, Committee on Petitions. Quite some committees more. Marc, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be there.
Marc, you have been elected in January, so it's not as vice president not so long time ago, and was following also this quite unpleasant episode, which was named Qatargate. What have we learned from this scandal, and how can we ensure in the future? I mean, things will always happen regardless how strict the rules are, but what should be the steps to be taken to ensure even more transparency in the future?
Well, we have learned that transparency is important, and that we should guarantee more transparency, but also that there has to be control mechanisms. We already had rules. They were not strong enough, but these rules were not always controlled. For example, this NGO Fight Impunity was not on the list, on the registered list of lobbyists, for example, and nobody noticed that, nobody controlled that. So it's important to have rules, but also to then control them. And I was very proud that this Parliament, in a big majority, voted after this scandal a very strong resolution where we have to really work hard to guarantee more transparency, and we called there on different levels. The Parliament can assure some things can be decided in the Bureau, can go quickly. For example, we decided this Monday here in Strasbourg on new rules, what former members can do, and to have a better control of who enters and who they bring in, for example, because this was the case with former MEP Panzeri, who was the brain in this action. So that we already did. Then there's other things where we have to have a majority in the plenary, and then there is very important measures which we have to take, and which the resolution also calls for, is to have finally this EU ethics body, but that needs the three institutions, and that this body will count for all the EU agencies also. And there we have to touch the interinstitutional agreement, and really we hope that the Commission will come out soon with the legislative proposals. They promised it in 2019, 2020, and the Parliament in a resolution in non-suspect times said, listen, we need it. And now in December, we again said, listen, now it has to come. And we got good signals from the Commission that they will come out with proposals to have this ethics body finally. This is very important. But we have to work on it, because if we want to get back citizens' trust, we must also work on transparency and give information and fight for anti-corruption culture in the European Union, because we've been so successful last year, I think, as a Parliament and as a Union as a whole. Coming out of COVID, having found common solutions to keep Europe together. We had good numbers. Then in the war, we stayed united. And then this horrible scandal, this disgusting scandal, overshadowed all that. And it's very difficult now to work to restore that trust. And we are working on it. We have to work on it, as I said, enhance transparency and strengthen our rules. There is an action plan of the president. My political group also had a very important 15-point plan. And we already said in my group, we have to be even work harder, because the scandal happened also in our group. And therefore, we're also doing an internal inquiry, which is very important to be credible and to learn how was this possible? Why didn't we not notice it? And what can we do to avoid it? So we have to work on that, but we also have to work hard to deliver good politics in Europe now, because the citizens see that we've done quite well to ensure that we have resilient small and medium enterprises, that we care about our industry economy to be resilient, but the citizens also, we need to make policies to have resilient citizens so that they can pay their bills at the end of the month, especially in this crisis, energy crisis, family inflation. So we really have to show that the European Union is working hard, and therefore social policy is so important. And therefore I'm happy that in the employment committee, in the committee for also social affairs, we are really pushing social Europe, and that we have a commissioner who's also pushing it. And we are looking forward that the Portuguese government is organizing a summit in Porto, the 2 years after the important social Porto summit. So these will be important signs for the future.
Yeah, we totally agree with you that we have to work, but we have expressed, I would say, our satisfaction also in the past years, both with the Commission and the Parliament. I think there was a big will and strong, tangible will here also to improve working conditions and social protection. So I can only, how could I say, confirm what you have been saying also from our point of view. Marc, you're mentioning regaining the trust of citizens also. The EU elections coming up, what are your biggest fears or what are your hopes? Because this is also the objective of this interview today. It's part of a series also to make citizens, our members, a little bit more aware of what the European Union is and that they should go voting if possible. What are you as Vice President, you're having such a, I would say, strong insight also in the Parliament. What are your biggest fears? What are your hopes?
Fears is never a good advisor. I mean, the fears is that the scandal can be misused by far rights and populists to say, oh, Europe is corrupt, and then with fake news. This is a bit of fear I have. But on the other hand, my hope is that citizens have recognized that Europe has changed in the last years, that they remember when we had the financial crisis. What was the answer of Europe? It was austerity, which was the wrong policies, and we saw the harm we did. And this time in the COVID crisis, and also now still, we need to work together, that Europe is only strong if they work together. We came up with the Recovery and Resilience Fund to make also Europe more resilient, almost 800 billion euro. So this is money, and with conditionalities on it, on investing in climate change, investing in social investments, etc., in infrastructure. And I hope they see that Europe brings them an added value. So I invite them to go and vote. But they must also know, citizens, that it's not only every 5 years during European elections where they have a say on European politics, because every national election is also in one way a European election, because they elect their national parliament, out of that comes a national government. And let's not forget that the ministers of our national governments, they are co-legislators in Brussels. They are the council, and often good things are blocked in the council. So therefore, it's important, the European elections, but also the national elections, to have pro-European parties, because if national solutions, we saw it in the beginning of COVID. Remember when countries closed their borders, when they thought we can solve that by ourselves, and then they quickly realized, and the Commission got active. Took a while to get this European effort, but then when this European energy came in and effort came in, we were able to be very successful in buying the vaccines, in creating the, as I said, the Resilient and Recovery Fund, and therefore that's my hope, that citizens will see that and not fall in those who defend nationalistic solutions. And what is interesting also, from what I see as somebody who's very much involved in social policies, I see that those people who want to destroy Europe, but at home they always pretend that they are protecting the workers or the people who are working. But when it comes to votes in the European Parliament, they are always on the side of big business and on the big money, and never on the people who work every day, be it workers or employees, or really people who are on the labor market, being citizens, paying their taxes, etc. So and also that is something we have to show, that it's that we need more Europe, a better Europe, and we have to change Europe. And this is also what came out from the citizens during this very important conference on the future of Europe. There was such good ideas, and they all agreed. They were critical on many things, but they gave us good recommendations, and they understand that together we are strong. And I say that not only because I come from a small member state, Luxembourg, the second smallest one, but if you see the global demographics, even bigger countries in 20, 30, 40 years, they are strong when we're together. And this is I hope, a message that the citizens will see. And if you know that so many millions of people in the world would love to vote, they live in autocracies, in dictatorships, they have no say in voting. So being part of a democratic community, having the right of vote to go every 5 years, I think this is not asking too much of citizens. And so I call on them to participate in this wonderful democratic exercise.
You referred to the war, you referred to COVID, stronger, united, we are stronger. It is commonly said now that since the Russian aggression against Ukraine, the West is more united. The citizens are more, how could I say, standing up for looking at the Ukrainian example, for our so-called values. What is your comment on that?
Well, by chance, I read a new poll yesterday, which came out, which says that Americans and Europeans, when it comes to the Russian aggression on Ukraine, the war they provoked in Ukraine, the West, as you call it, it means Europeans and Americans and the North Atlantic Alliance, as I say, citizens, they hold the same views about the major global questions, and also on the support to Ukraine and the Ukrainians, and a support not only militarily, but also in economic support, a political support, and a humanitarian support. And I think this is very, very important. Because it's also important that inside the European Union there is a unity on this, and that's a good sign we give also to Ukraine, that the door is open. We gave them the status of a candidate country, but that does not mean that they are a member tomorrow or after tomorrow. It will take a time. We have criteria, but we also support them to fulfill this criteria. And this is important. And I think we really realize that they are defending our values of democracy. And even though it's still not perfect, but they're working on it, but they want to belong to the family of democratic nations in Europe. And what Putin did is violating international law. And we know if Ukraine will lose, then this can be very dangerous for other countries like Moldova, for the Baltics. So we have to be strong together and hope that that dictators will see that they cannot breach international law, the peace order we had, and that this is a no-go, and that we are fighting for our values. And that's also why we support the Ukraine and the citizens of Ukraine, of course, and the territorial integrity of that country.
Marc, you're a member of the Committee of Employment and Social Affairs. Your heart is beating, how could I say, for employment and the social cause. You were shadow rapporteur also, I think, for the report on the directive for pay transparency, which has gone through. I think there's a final vote to be expected now in plenary. What mechanism do you think? I mean, you have best insights also into this directive, or hopefully upcoming or approved directive. What mechanism are needed in fact?
First of all, equal pay for equal work or work of equal value is in the treaty since 1957. Can you believe that? And we still have a gender pay gap of 14% in Europe. In 2012, the Commission gave recommendations, and some country followed it. Also my country. At the time, I was a member of national parliament, and the Commissioner Nicolas Schmidt was Minister of Labour. He brought a law, and it worked, and we have now the lowest gender pay gap in the European Union. So we needed to legislate. That's why I was happy that finally Commissioner Dalli, the Commission, came up with a directive and on pay transparency. And the most important is to create transparency. So what are the mechanisms that companies have to make reports, report on how the situation is in their company? The threshold is quite high. We in the Commission proposal it was 250. We as Social Democrats wanted 0 thresholds because we wanted this for every woman to work. But then in the trilogues and in the negotiations, we ended up with a threshold of it was 500, 250, but also smaller enterprises, they are not obliged, they can do voluntary reporting, but they also have to give information. So we need transparency. And then also in this directive, we gave a strong role to also the trade unions and the social partners, because social dialogue is always important and collective bargaining is important also in these cases. We also made it, there's an article on forbidding pay history. So an employer, when they employ a person, they cannot ask how much did you earn in your former job, because if that person answers and gives that number and it wasn't a very high salary, then they say, okay, this one is ready to work for a low salary. So this is also important. And then also nobody can put in a work contract that you have to disclose that you have to keep secret your salary, so that there is more transparency. And I think this is good. And also there's this horizontal, with the hypothetical comparator, because there is sectors which are dominated by men and sectors which are more dominated by women, and often and mostly the sectors dominated by women are less paid. So there is ways to compare that also. So I hope that this will help to reduce this gender pay gap. There needs more other policies for that too, but this is a good tool to do that. And I was also proud that in this first time, when we talked about women, we have women in all their diversity and also men in all their diversity. This because there has been judgments that the concept of men and women, which when it was the treaty in 1957, is totally different. So we, based on some ECJ, as from the European Court of Justice judgments, the concept of women is women in all their diversity. So it's a broad concept, and this is very inclusive. And I think in 2023, we have to be very inclusive on this question. So let's see. The vote will be soon, and then I was happy that we could finish this file under the Czech presidency. So this gives us now energy to attack the next files which are on the table.
Marc, you mentioned the next files. I mean, until the next elections, it's a little bit more than a year, so not so much time. What would you hope for? What should still be done here at EU level until then?
Well, yesterday we had a very important debate in the plenary on the horizontal anti-discrimination directive. You know, there is a wonderful directive which came out in 2008 and has been blocked in the council for 15 years. We have good anti-discrimination law when it comes to labor law, but we only 8 hours a day at work, and the day has 24 hours. So we really have to push to unblock also this anti-discrimination directive. I think that would be very important. We have already a good proposal to give more power to the equality bodies. This is a proposal which is on the table. I think that's an important one where I like to work on. I give you now in my employment committee a few things. I think also the European disability card will be an important file for me at least, and also for almost 80 million people have some forms of disability. This would be important. And then a very important file, and where we had a successful resolution and we had a wonderful initiative report, is on minimum income. And we called for a directive. We need legislation on minimum income also, because you know, the question of poverty is a big problem, and the scissors between poor and rich are going apart. So minimum income is also something I think which is important. But then the whole Fit for 55 package, the whole climate package is, of course, I'm not so much working on that, but that's also important for me. And then a last thing, which I think is quite important, is, you know, we had, as mentioned before, the conference on the future of Europe. And the citizens came up with many, many recommendations. And most of the recommendations can be implemented just by policy change or by legislation, which the Commission brings forward. But a few important points also would need treaty change. And the Committee on Constitutional Affairs, AFCO committee here in the Parliament, they are working now on the proposal on these few points where we would have to change the treaty. One of the big questions where the citizens said, you need to get rid of unanimity. Europe is always blocking. We need to move on. And especially in the perspective of enlargement with the Western Balkan countries, where the negotiation go on. If Ukraine one day comes, if we have this unanimity, we are blocking each other. So qualified majority, that should be a priority for me. And also what I think is very important that we would get, and that's also something the citizens ask, the social progress protocol into the treaty. I think this is something also quite important. So there's a lot of work to do, and we're pushing towards this, and let's see if we succeed. But as I said, Brussels or Strasbourg cannot do everything. We need the member states on the side. And I come back to what I said at the beginning. The citizens shouldn't forget that it's also important when they vote on national elections to see what is the program of the party for European policies. Is it a pre-European? Is it a pro-European party? Is it a party who wants to destroy Europe and who wants less Europe? And this is also important. We are working hard here, but member states also have to work. And therefore, it's good to have social partners like you and civil society like you. You play a very important role in this to find common solutions to make Europe a better place to work and to live in.
Marc, Mr. Vice President, you have a lot on your plate. We wish you all the best for this remaining time, this remaining year, and all the best for the upcoming European elections. As you know, we stand by for all the dossiers, also if need is if help is needed, sorry. And yes, all the best to you. Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you very much to you. And as I said, for us, it's very important to reach out to the civil society, to social partners, to trade unions, because you are on the terrain, you know where the problems are, and we shouldn't be in an ivory tower in the parliament. We have to get this contact, and it's a very useful contact. So thank you very much. And whenever you're in Brussels, don't hesitate to come to the office, and we can have a chat.
We will do that. Thank you very much.
All the best. You're very welcome. Bye-bye. Bye. It was a pleasure. Bye.